Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Forever Mighty post-game show podcast. Obviously, this is a special edition as we have a very special guest who's made some time to spend with us this morning. We got Rikard Grönborg. Rikard, how are you doing today, man?
A little bit jet lag, but other than that, it's pretty good.
Oh, yeah, you were just saying you flew in last night, so you're out in Chicago to what are you doing in Chicago exactly?
I'm going to watch the game here tonight, Chicago, LA. Meet the Swedish players and start kind of get an idea what kind of players I'm going to be able to use in the World Championships in May here in Bratislava.
Oh, there you go. So a little bit of scouting and a little bit of fun, huh?
Yeah, no, exactly. Jet lag. I was up at the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning here, so I just got done with that, and now I'm sitting down with you guys.
Oh, we appreciate it, man. So just to get into it here, we just kind of want to give everybody a little bit of background. So if you could just tell us a little bit about where you've been and what you're doing currently. I know you said you're scouting players for the World Juniors, but what's been going on for you?
No, actually, the World Championships. I really don't have. Yeah, exactly. That's going to be in May. I'm obviously been in the U.S. for quite some time. I'm a U.S. citizen. I came over and play college hockey at St. Cloud State University, and back then it was WCHA. Now it's a different league. They formed a different league there, but play college hockey. Probably best time of my life with everything in the school. Obviously. Doing schoolwork at the same time as playing hockey is pretty amazing thing to do. And after I was done, I had 3 years of eligibility there. I moved back to Sweden. I back to Stockholm and finish off my career there for a couple of years. And when I got back to the U.S., I went back to school and I was going to finish my degree in St. Cloud. And at St. Cloud, they asked me to become a graduate assistant. And that was my first year of dipping my toe into the coaching profession. That was almost 20 years ago. So I mean, I've been coaching since then. The last 10 years I've been with the Swedish national team, and worked myself from being a head coach in under 18 up to under 20, and now I'm the head coach for the national team. To make a long story short there, that's kind of my career coaching. I coached at different levels in the U.S. Obviously, U.S. and Canada. I coached in different junior leagues in the U.S. I coached in the CHL, Canadian Hockey League, and 1 year with Spokane Chiefs, a U.S.-based team, in the Canadian Hockey League. And then I also coached in college, like I said, and so before I moved back to Sweden. So I've been there for the last 10 years.
That was one of my other questions too. You played for St. Cloud and then ended up, like you said, going back and coaching. How do you go from being a hockey player to a hockey coach? Kind of is that something you've always kind of wanted to do? Is that just kind of was in you to go back and help people come up through the system?
Absolutely not. I didn't. I had no. I was so far from a coach. I think as a player, obviously as a player, you're thinking about what you need to do next shift or what you need to do next practice, and obviously you're always a team player. You're always trying to do what's right for the team, but you focus on what you're supposed to do. And I was pretty, that was kind of my world until I got back and talked to the coach there, and after talking to him for an hour or so, he thought he'd be a perfect guy for a graduate assistant job and helping us push pucks the first year and see, and I thought it was a pretty good transition too from being a player for so many years and not playing. I thought it was a pretty good transition to quote unquote regular life.
Yeah, and in your playing career, you made that decision to come over to North America from Sweden, and we're seeing a lot more players start to do that either right before they're drafted or right after. Like most recently, Adam Bachvist came over to come play in the CHL, and Isac Lundestrom came over to play for the Ducks, and now he chose to stay in the AHL instead of going back to the Swedish Hockey League. Speaking from experience, what goes into a decision like that, and how hard can it be to transition to the North American style of play?
Well, first of all, those guys were a little bit more highly touted than I was, but no, I think it's everyone needs to do their own ride, if you like. They need to make their own decision what's best for you at that point of time, and I think we're doing a great job in Sweden on developing talent. I think that's obviously evident with the players we produce into National Hockey League and also the success we had in the different World Championships. So I think the environment in Sweden is really good. But sooner or later, for these guys, their biggest dream is obviously to play in a National Hockey League, and the fastest way to do that, I don't know what's the best way to do it, but I think it's pretty individual. If you're moving over here, obviously you get accustomed to the culture and playing in smaller rinks and stuff, but also at home you can slowly develop into an elite player and do it in your own time. So I think it's a personal journey and decision you need to make together with the people that surround yourself with. So, but for me, it was a perfect way of actually getting education and playing the same time at a high level. I think that was my biggest draw to it.
Yeah, and looking at one of those up-and-coming players in Rasmus Dahlin, just how good is he? Because he was the first overall draft pick from Sweden since Matt Sundin, so definitely a lot of high expectations from him.
Yeah, and there should be high expectations. I think at the same time you got to understand the guy is 18 years old and he needs to develop at his own pace. But I think he's proven over the last couple of years and shown over the past couple of years in Swedish hockey league, which is a very good league, that he's an elite defender and will be an elite defender in National Hockey League, and is already. I think the first few games here he's already established himself. But I think we have quite a few defensemen coming out of Sweden right now, and we mentioned Boquist and a couple other guys that they're young guys that they're trying to make himself elite defenseman in National Hockey League, and I think we've done a great job of doing it. And I think there's different reasons why we have so many defensemen moving up to National Hockey League. I think that the main thing is that we're proponents of development skills and also I think with Lindstrm and other elite defensemen. Older defensemen that these guys have as idols. They had a tendency of becoming defensemen, some of our best players. So there are a few examples of I think the things that are making us develop so many defensemen.
Yeah, and along the same lines to that, you have experience in both coaching veterans and some of the younger kids. Do you have to change your coaching style at all between coaching the kids versus some of the older guys in the national team?
There's no question. I mean, first of all, you have to have interest in the players of today. There's such a different environment from when I grew up. I mean, when I grew up, I had the baby boomers were my coaches, there's a different style. If I just implemented stuff that they were doing and successful with at that point in time, I wouldn't be a very good coach. So I need to show curiosity in the players of today. What's making them tick? I think the main thing right now is that they're so eager of getting feedback all the time. And talking about the smallest little details sometimes, and then you have to make time for that. I think in their environment with all the social media, everything else, where they give feedback all instantly, and they're so accustomed to that. And if you don't give them feedback, it's going to be tough for them. That's just one thing. But mainly to try and understand what they're coming from and their perspective, I think is very important for us coaches.
And which do you prefer? Do you prefer coaching the kids or the vets?
You know what? It's a different challenge. I can't say. There's always, I think, rewards at the end. Either one. I think the interest in the person itself, it's really important. I mean, just because two people are born the same year doesn't mean that they're the same things are taken for each other. So yeah. Each one of those guys. So it's really important for me to get interested in the person and try to make them tick. And I think that the more relationship you have with a player, I think the more you can be on them. I think you can make it more accountable in their actions if you have built a relationship, and that's a two-way street. You can't just expect them to listen to everything you got. Give them if you don't have no interest in them. So it's but at the same time, I think it doesn't really matter. I think you need to identify each individual and make sure that they the biggest thing for me as a coach is to make them the best hockey players possible. If I can succeed of helping the players to become great hockey players, I think we have a pretty good hockey team. So,
All right, cool. Now there are a lot of European players in the NHL. I think the last one I saw, something like 30% of the NHL is now European players. When do you think there are going to be more European coaches? Because that seems to be a far smaller percentage.
That's a great question. I consider myself more of a hybrid, perfectly honest. If you start there, but I coach against some great coaches in North America. I coach against some great coaches in Europe, and they're great minds of hockey in both places. So I think it's just a matter of making a decision that or we'll go outside the bounds a little bit for the decision makers and maybe have interest in European coaches. The game is so the game is so small right now when it comes to knowing exactly what each other is doing. I'm talking about, if I coach against the Russians or Finns or the Slovaks, I think I have a pretty good idea what they're going to do, but it's so universal. There's so similar things that you bring up, and I think we're all stealing from each other, and the same thing with North Americans. So I think it's just a matter of time. I think it's just a matter of, people that are making those decisions. They're not very many jobs, first of all. You only have 31 teams. So, but I think it's a two-way street of European coaches making more available, and the decision makers over in North America to have more interest in European coaches.
Yeah. Do you think the GMs are maybe a little hesitant just because of the perceived differences in styles between a North American game and the European game, as they say?
But I don't think it is anymore, though. I think it's a pretty universal thing. Like I said, there's always certain things that are with the Russian national teams or the Finns that it's kind of their DNA or the core of how they're coaching and the way they're playing. But at the same time, I think it's very universal because when you get to those big tournaments, I'm talking Olympics with NHL players or the World Cups or even the World Championships, when NHL players coming back to the national teams, they're used to play in North American rinks and North American against the North American players in the North American environment. So and those are the type of players that I've been coaching the last few years. So it'd be kind of stupid of me to try to play in the way the Swedes did in 1995 and expect to have success that way. So I think the game right now is so universal. I don't think it's a big difference. There's some tactical difference when it comes to a larger or smaller rink, but other than that, I think the way you work on the players, the way you preparing the players before the game is I feel is pretty universal.
Okay. You've also said, and I agree with it, NHL teams are very reactionary. Like right now, the thing is to play fast. That's what everyone's trying to do because speed seemed to work for teams in the last couple of seasons. Everyone tries to copy what worked the season before. So do you think that's really the best approach in the NHL?
Well, NHL is so broad, but you got to look at your own team and then see, okay, what are our strengths? We always sit down with our national team and we're looking at what kind of players we have on our team and what our strengths are at this the 25 or 30 players we have and somehow trying to get a system working for those type of players and get the games into our strengths. I think that's the number one thing you have to do as an organization is to identify where we're at, but also where we're going. And I'm talking now the draft picks and everything else. So these are the guys that are coming in. But when it comes to winning every day, you need to identify what our strengths are and try to get the games into the strengths of your team. So I like I'm more of an active versus a reactive kind of a game, and I'm saying that is that instead of reacting to everything the opponents are doing, you need to be active out there with or without the puck. I mean, we're talking more in those type of terms than needs to go fast. One example of that is the World Cup team. We had a little older team. We thought our strengths were our defensemen, obviously Lundqvist and Net, and our defensemen, but also very smart centers. They're not very quick, but they're very smart. So we try to get the games into that type of strengths, and I think we successfully did that. And versus last World Championship team, we had quite a bit upfront speed. We made our systems and our tactics towards that, and it was very successful. That obviously going blank through the World Championship and winning all the games there. So you need to assess what kind of team you had and make a system that works for your team.
Now, you are obviously, the goal for you now is to try and be a head coach in the NHL. That's kind of like the dream job. But if it doesn't quite happen right out of the gate, are you still willing to entertain the idea of starting in the minors or the NCAA first and kind of working your way up through that way?
You know what's next for me? Right now I'm curious myself. I'm focusing on my job, and that's why I'm here in Chicago right now. Go watch the game and start. We played our first tournament here and do as good of a job as possible this season. And I'm sure that if I do a good enough job, there's going to be some interest out there. And where that interest is at, I don't know yet. Not right now. I'm identifying certain interests from certain people at different leagues, and make a decision that's going to be the most of a challenge for me. So it's very speculative of me right now to mention one team or this is where I'm going, or even one league. Perfectly honest with you, I'm just curious what the next step is. I just feel like the federation want to extend my contract to have another 3 years, but I felt being here for 10 years with the Swedish national hockey. With the Swedish national hockey teams, I just felt it's time for me to move on, and so it's I'm as curious as you are.
Well, tons of success, obviously. So why not go to the next challenge, right? I kind of feel like that's a good move. And speaking just though to the Swedish national team, you've had a chance to work with Isac Lundestrom, and he was probably Sweden's most consistent forward in terms of generating offense at the World Juniors. Were you surprised to see him make the Ducks right out of camp?
No. He has the top end skills. I think in the size, and he competes. He has all the ingredients of being a really good forward. The biggest thing for me is just get experience. He played in Luleå and did a great job up there, and get some national team experience. He got some obviously junior national team experience. And it'd be interesting to see if the Ducks will let him go and play the Junior World Championships this year again, because he'd be the top forward this year for sure. I wasn't surprised. I think it's be interesting to see what the next step with him and the Ducks and what they're deciding on. I think it's good for him to maybe go down and play some more minutes and make the next step.
Yeah, he was really impressive. We were watching him in camp and then watching him come into the beginning of the season. I was like, he doesn't look out of place at all. And one of the defining traits that a lot of us Ducks fans have picked up on is his responsibility with the puck. It was just glaring when you watch the game and when he has it. How much do you think that has to do with the fact he was playing in the SHL for the last 2 seasons? Not many players his age accomplish that.
No, it's a tough league to break in, and it's a fast league. You're talking about speed, and it's a very fast league. I think he's done a great job with Luleå. I think he got the chance to play with us in the national team, with the senior men's national team, and did a really good job with that. It was the first time I worked with him last year, and I played a few national team games there, and did a really good job. I agree with you. His responsibility with the puck, and also he can challenge you one-on-one on a lot of times on smartness. So I think I think the Anaheim's got a really good player there. It's just what's the next step for him, and that's what I think they're trying to figure out. That he needs some more minutes, and that's why they sent him down probably.
Yeah, I think it'll be good for his development to get some time in the AHL. But on the topic of World Juniors, despite likely losing Elias Pettersson and Rasmus Dahlin to their NHL teams, how do you think Sweden sets up for this year's tournament?
They had a tough showing last weekend, perfectly honest with you. But the way it looks right now is they can get, a Boqvist and Liljegren that plays for Marlies. They have Sundin that plays for Marlies. They have, quite a few defensemen, first-round defensemen. If you can get 3 or 4 of those to the national team, I think it'd be pretty good. They have had problems scoring, and that's what Isac would be perfect to come in and help out with the forwards, But I think they're going to fare up pretty well. Defensive core, if they can get those defensemen, which it looks like they are going to get now, I think they should be able to compete like they do every year.
And who's a player you think could shine that maybe people haven't heard about? Maybe a first-year guy who's eligible for the draft this year, or somebody who might step up that you don't normally expect?
Boy, such a broad question. It's a tough one. I got to work with first time working last weekend with Jesper Sellgren, plays now in Luleå as well. Is from Modo originally. Sellgren was really good with us when we played the Russians, the Finns, and the Czechs last weekend. And he played in the Junior World Championship team last year. He's too old this year, but he's born '98. I think he can be a tremendous defenseman, a great skater. He moves the puck so well, and he's shown that in SHL this year. It's his first year in SHL, so he's a player to watch for sure.
And kind of switching gears a bit, recently the NHL brought back the China Games in the Global Series in 2017. Speaking specifically about Sweden, how important is it for the fans and young hockey players there to be able to experience a regular season NHL game?
Very important. I think that's just brought in a great game. I think it's important for NHL to obviously come over so the fans over in Europe and other places in the world can get to see these players live. So I think it's a great move. My understanding is that I got to keep doing this. I was at the game in Gothenburg and watched Jersey and Edmonton play, and it was a great spectacle. I think it was sold out crowds, and it was a big party before and everything else. So obviously NHL draws in Europe. And I think they should keep doing it. And then also for the young players, this is where I want to play. And I never had that. I mean, I was watching a Super 8 movie in the hockey school in summers. That's the only time I got to watch NHL when I grew up. So everything is so accessible, and even the teams are coming over to Europe and playing. I think that's really good for the brand of NHL and for those young players to have something to strive towards.
Yeah, and kind of on the same lines of that, one thing we've discussed on our show recently is the talks about the NHL eventually expanding into Europe. I wonder what your thoughts are on that and how an NHL team based out of Sweden would help hockey develop in the country.
You know what? It's been talk about NHL expanding into Europe. I don't think that's going to happen in my lifetime. But even KHL has been trying to make moves towards Sweden. They have a Finnish team already. So it's Sweden's kind of right in between there. I think Swedish players' dream is to play in the National Hockey League in no other league. There's no question of that. Obviously SHL as well, but. I think right now the expansion going on in North America has been tremendous. I think as many people are not happy with all the work blockages and stuff like that, the lockouts. I think the game has really been. I think the franchise is in a really good state right now. I think the next move, what I understand, is going to be Seattle. I think that's an excellent move. Are there more cities in North America? They're waiting to get an NHL team. I don't know the whole story there, but I think it's pretty far away from an NHL team in Europe right now.
Okay, so here comes a loaded homework question. So there are a lot of Ducks fans that know about you and know that you're obviously Swedish. And there are many who call Anaheim Swedenheim because of how many Swedish draft picks we've got already in our lineup. Plus, you have some experience with some of those guys. Doesn't it seem like a perfect fit to come here? I mean, the weather alone is enough for most, right?
Yeah, no question. I love California. I love Southern California, especially. So, it's. I think the players I work with from the Anaheim organization has been tremendous players and tremendous people. There's no question on that. I think in right now, obviously, Anaheim in a kind of a little bit of a change of guards, if you like, when it comes to player personnel. I think the new generation is getting more and more ice time and moving up the ranks on the team. So it's I'm sure it's a little bit of a challenge there. But at the same time, I think I think at the end, I think Anaheim have an excellent chance of making the playoffs. So to answer your question, my goal as a coach is obviously try to get a break in the National Hockey League. What is that? I don't know. But if there's a lot of Swedes or not on the team, Swedes would help out. And any player I worked with before would help out because you already started a relationship with them. But it is a pretty loaded question.
For sure.
We had to throw a curveball in at the end of there for you, just for all of our Ducks fans. And I mean, everyone's been talking about you around here, so we had to get you on. Rikard, we really appreciate your time. We know you're very busy. Enjoy your time in Chicago, and hopefully we'll have you on, once again down the line here. Maybe when you're back when you get to the NHL.
That sounds great. I really appreciate you taking the time and inviting me into this podcast. Thank you.
All right, take care. Have a good one.
Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.